The Roman Republic, established in 509 BCE, was a complex political system that balanced power among different social classes while maintaining a structure that heavily favored the elite. At the heart of this system was land ownership, which played a crucial role in determining political representation, social status, and military obligations. The connection between land ownership and political power shaped the Republic's development, its expansionist policies, and ultimately contributed to its downfall. This essay explores the relationship between land ownership and political representation in the Roman Republic, examining its origins, impact on the socio-political structure, and the reforms and crises that emerged as a result. The origins of land ownership and political power. The Roman Republic was fundamentally an aristocratic system in which political influence was concentrated in the hands of the landowning elite. In the early Republic, Roman society was divided into two major classes, the patricians and the plebeians. The patricians, descendants of Rome's earliest noble families, controlled vast amounts of land and held almost exclusive access to political office. In contrast, plebeians, who made up the majority of the population, had little political power and struggled for centuries to gain a voice in governance. Land ownership was a key factor in political representation because it determined military service, which in turn influenced eligibility for public office. The Servian constitution, attributed to King Servius Tullius, 6th century BCE, introduced a system of military organization that categorized citizens based on their wealth and land holdings. This system divided Roman citizens into centuries, groups that voted in the Comitia Centuriata, one of the Republic's major legislative assemblies. Since wealthier landowners formed the majority of the centuries with greater voting power, they dominated decision-making, effectively ensuring that political representation remained in the hands of the landowning elite. Patch 2. The role of land ownership in Republican politics. As Rome expanded through military conquest, land became an even more critical factor in political representation. The Roman Republic's governing institutions, particularly the Senate, were dominated by wealthy landowners who used their influence to shape policies in favor of their interests. 1. The Senate and the landowning elite. The Senate, composed of ex-magistrates from Rome's leading families, was the most powerful political body in the Republic. Its members, known as senators, were required to be landowners, and wealth from land enabled them to maintain their social and political status. The Senate controlled financial and foreign policies, military campaigns, and provincial administration, allowing landowning elites to accumulate even more wealth through conquest and land distribution. 2. The equestrian class and land ownership. Alongside the senatorial class, the equestrian order, equites, emerged as a wealthy landowning group involved in commerce and provincial administration. While equites did not hold the highest political offices, they played a crucial role in economic and administrative affairs, benefiting from land acquisitions in conquered territories. Their influence further reinforced the link between land ownership and political power. 3. The assemblies and voting power. The Comitia Centuriata was responsible for electing magistrates, including consuls and praetors. Since the voting order favored wealthier citizens, landowners had a disproportionate say in elections. Similarly, the Comitia Tributa, another assembly, was organized by tribal divisions that often reflected land distribution patterns. Wealthy landowners controlled rural votes, ensuring continued dominance in legislative decisions. 3. Expansion and the changing nature of land ownership. As Rome expanded across Italy and beyond, land ownership patterns changed significantly, leading to new political and social challenges. Roman victories in the Punic Wars, 264 to 146 BCE, and other conflicts brought vast territories under Roman control, and much of this land was distributed among elite landowners rather than ordinary citizens. 1. Latifundia and the decline of small farmers. One of the most significant developments in Roman land ownership was the rise of the latifundia, large estates owned by wealthy aristocrats and worked by slaves. These estates displaced small farmers, many of whom had traditionally formed the backbone of the Roman military. As smallholders lost their land, they moved to cities, particularly Rome, where they became part of the growing urban poor. Impact on the military and political system. Since land ownership was tied to military service, the decline of small farmers created a crisis in the traditional Roman army. The Republic's legions were historically composed of citizen soldiers who owned land and had a vested interest in defending the state. However, as land concentration increased, fewer citizens met the property requirements for military service, forcing the state to rely on professionalized armies loyal to their commanders rather than the Republic itself. Fur, reforms and political crises. The increasing concentration of land in the hands of the elite and the displacement of small farmers led to political tensions and reform movements aimed at addressing social inequalities. 1. The Gracchi reforms. In the 2nd century BCE, Tiberius and Gaius Gracchus, two tribunes of the plebs, sought to address the land crisis through agrarian reforms. Tiberius Gracchus proposed redistributing public land to landless citizens, limiting the amount of land an individual could own, and strengthening small farmers. His efforts met fierce opposition from the Senate and the landowning elite, leading to his assassination in 133 BCE. A decade later, Gaius Gracchus continued his brother's reforms, but he too was killed in 121 BCE. The failure of the Gracchi reforms highlighted the entrenched power of the landowning elite and the Republic's inability to address socio-economic inequalities. 2. Marius military reforms. In response to the decline of the small farmer-soldier class, Gaius Marius, a general and consul, reformed the military by allowing landless citizens to enlist in the army. This professionalization of the military created new political dynamics as soldiers became increasingly loyal to their generals rather than the Republic. Military leaders such as Sulla, Pompey, and Julius Caesar used their personal armies to gain political power, leading to civil wars and the eventual collapse of the Republic. B. The decline of the Republic and the end of traditional land ownership. The role of land ownership in political representation ultimately contributed to the Republic's decline. As wealthy elites consolidated land and power, the traditional system of citizen soldiers eroded, and Rome became increasingly dependent on military strongmen who ruled through personal loyalty rather than constitutional authority. 1. Civil wars and the rise of dictatorship. The late Republic was marked by a series of civil wars between powerful generals, many of whom promised land to their soldiers in exchange for loyalty. Julius Caesar, for example, used promises of land redistribution to gain the support of his troops, ultimately leading to his dictatorship. 2. Augustus and the transition to empire. Following Caesar's assassination in 44 BCE, the Republic's final years were dominated by the struggle between Octavian, Augustus, and Mark Antony. After Octavian's victory at the Battle of Actium, 31 BCE, he restructured the Roman political system, centralizing power and redistributing land to secure military loyalty. In 27 BCE, he officially became Rome's first emperor, marking the transition from republic to empire. Under Augustus, land distribution became a tool of imperial control rather than a means of republican political representation. Land ownership was fundamental to political representation in the Roman Republic, shaping its social hierarchy, military system, and political institutions. The concentration of land in the hands of the elite led to growing economic inequality, military dependence on generals, and ultimately the Republic's collapse. While early Rome's political system was built on the idea of citizen participation, the erosion of small land ownership and the rise of professional armies transformed Roman governance, paving the way for the imperial system. The story of the Roman Republic demonstrates the profound impact that land distribution can have on political stability, a lesson that resonates throughout history.